Welcome back to Rusconi's American Kitchen cooking class. Today we're going to do something that's on our fall menu that we started a couple weeks ago. It's an arugula salad. We have some really wonderful organic arugula that we've sourced for this salad, nice and crisp. You can see it's baby. It's not the real big stuff that you often see in the grocery stores. You don't need to clean this arugula because it's very tender. The stems, they're fine. Regular arugula that's much larger, you need to pick the stems off, but this one doesn't. This arugula gets served with a little bit of prosciutto, some grilled butternut squash. We're going to make a salad dressing today. The salad dressing is going to be a basic sherry vinaigrette, and I'll go through that for you here in just a minute. Let's talk about the butternut squash. What you can do with the butternut squash is fire up your grill. Cut a butternut squash in half, scoop out the seeds. I think I taught you how to do this last week. And then you can peel your butternut squash. Now there's a couple different ways to do it. You can use a vegetable peeler. You want to make sure though you cut the squash in a shape that it's easy for you to peel with a knife. So I'm just going to cut a little piece off to demonstrate, like that. See, it'll fit nice and flat. It's not wobbly and moving around. And I'm going to peel it like I would, say, a grapefruit. I'm going to take my knife and just shave the skin off. Just moving it ever so slightly. It helps to have a nice sharp knife to do this with. Keep your fingers out of the way. Make sure the squash is stable. That way you don't cut yourself. And that's it. So you have, I'm just demonstrating this real small piece for you. So you have that. You can grill these pieces. We're going to take and cut nice thick pieces like this. When I say nice and thick, I mean maybe a little bit less than 1/4 inch. But you want them all to be roughly the same thickness, kind of like I just demonstrated here. If I could put them together and show you. These are all pretty much the same. And that's the idea. A little salt and pepper, a little bit of olive oil, and right onto the grill. You can see all 5 pieces are cut almost exactly the same. It takes a little practice to do that, but just take your time. There's no rush. The salad doesn't call for a lot of squash. So you're going to put that on the grill. And you're going to grill it till you get some nice color on it. It's going to be kind of soft and pliable like that. That's about it. Allow it to cool because it is served cold. But the first and most important thing is really going to be the salad dressing. Now, salad dressings, there's a couple different varieties. If you do a balsamic dressing, the ratio is going to be a little bit different than other vinegars. Why is that? Because balsamic vinegar is much sweeter. It has more sugar in it. So it's less acidic. So you need less oil to balance out that acid bite that you get in your mouth. Typically there's a couple kinds. There's an emulsified dressing and there's a temporarily suspended dressing. A temporarily suspended dressing has nothing to bind it. An emulsified dressing has an emulsifier. In this case, we're going to use Dijon mustard. Dijon mustard naturally has something called lecithin in it. Lecithin is a binding agent. So I'm going to put a little bit of, well, first I'm going to use a little bit of shallot. I'm going to brunoise this really, really finely. I'm going to cut this tip off because it's a little bit dry. Peel your shallots. I'm going to put some slices in sideways. If you want to use onion, you can just use a little bit less and make sure you chop it very small. So I put 4 or 5 slices this way. Now I'm going to do some slices the other way. Seems the tip of my knife is getting a little dull. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and brunoise this. Nice and small. Just like that. So I'm going to use about 1 medium-sized shallot to do this. So I have a few pieces that didn't really come apart there. I'm going to set those aside and chop those up. For the most part, you have some nicely diced shallot there. We'll call that about a tablespoon and a half. And that might actually be a little bit too much. I'm going to go with just a tablespoon. I have a couple stragglers there that I'm going to chop up. These are going to get lost in your salad dressing, so it's not critical that they're perfect. So we're going to start with about a tablespoon of finely diced Brunoise shallot. Brunoise just means really, really small. I'm going to go with about a teaspoon and a half of Dijon mustard. I messed up. I should have used a smaller bowl. I'll make it work. It's okay. I'm going to add a little vinegar right into this. So back to the whole thing with vinegars. Ratios. Balsamic vinegar, half vinegar, half oil. Red wine vinegar, sherry vinegar, which is what we're going to use here. This is a vinegar that comes from Spain. Raspberry vinegar, champagne vinegar, apple cider vinegar. All those tend to be a little more acidic. You want to go 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar on those. With balsamic, you go 50-50. With some of those more acidic vinegars, you can go 2/3 oil to 1/3 vinegar. That's going to be a little bit sharper. You might want to, if it's too sharp, you can put just a pinch of sugar in there to balance that out. Or you can add a little bit more oil, but you lose, if you add too much oil, then you lose flavor. So I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to do this to taste anyway, but I'm going to try to stick with that ratio. So I'm going to start in this bowl. I made a mistake. I'm going to start in this bowl. I'm going to just mix this up. Just to dissolve that little bit of Dijon mustard that I put in there. I'm going to use a smaller bowl because it's easier to do it by hand in a smaller vessel. It's easier to bring the emulsification together. So I'm going to put a towel underneath this. It's going to help keep this from moving around. If you have a son or daughter, it's a good thing to have them do. I'm going to start this off with just a pinch of salt because I want to give that a minute to dissolve in there. And a pinch of white pepper because I want that to flavor it. Takes a minute. I'm going to whisk that a little bit so it's all dissolved. Then I'm going to slowly drizzle my olive oil in. This is a regular olive oil. This isn't a extra virgin olive oil. Why? Extra virgin olive oil, when you refrigerate it, tends to solidify. It gets very viscous in the refrigerator. Regular olive oil, most of them will not solidify like that. Why is that important? Well, if you go to all this trouble to emulsify your salad dressing and you put it in the refrigerator and use extra virgin, when that oil solidifies, it's going to break your salad dressing. Plus, when you take it out of the refrigerator, it's not going to be liquid. It's going to be like sludge. So you don't want to do that. So we're going to take some regular olive oil, and I'm going to just slowly drizzle some in as I'm whisking. You want to start slow. It will start to get thicker. You'll see it. Now this takes a minute. Keep going. Stick with it. You can, if you have a small mixer, you can use a mixer. You can also use a blender, a small blender to do this too. You know, if you're going to do a blender batch, it's better to make a little bit larger batch of the salad dressing because you have to start with enough volume in the bottom of the blender with the vinegar and the mustard to be able to emulsify it. I'm not doing that today because I'm making such a small amount of the dressing. It is getting thicker. You can see it's emulsifying nicely. I don't know if you can see up in the mirror, but it's coming together. It's gotten a little bit thicker. That's another thing that you'll see is one of the characteristics. As you whisk the oil in, you'll see that the dressing, the emulsification is occurring, and the dressing is getting thicker. So we're getting pretty close. Also, when you do refrigerate this, it will get a little bit thicker. Shouldn't get so thick that it breaks it right away. This will not be a permanent emulsion. It may last a week. Not a highly perishable salad dressing because the vinegar, the acid, kind of neutralizes everything. And you don't really have anything in there that can grow. It's getting nice and thick. Yeah. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to test it with a little piece of arugula, because that's how you're going to eat it. I would say it needs a little more vinegar. So what you're looking for with this is you want a little acid at the back. That acid kind of opens up your taste buds and allows you to taste the other characteristics of the vinegar. I want a little too much oil, I think. So I'm going to give this just a splash of vinegar. The vinegar will thin your dressing down a little bit too, but it will stay emulsified. Looks pretty good to me. Let's try it again. The dip test never fails. I'm still off. I'm doing this to taste. At home, if you're starting out, measure it out. Measure, let's go, if you want a decent amount of dressing that'll be around for a while, do a quart. Do a cup of vinegar to 3 cups of olive oil. And you'll be able to do in a blender. And that'll come together with a little bit of mustard pretty easy. I think I need a little bit more vinegar. There we go. All right. So that looks pretty good to me. Let's try it one more time. Now I've got it just right. I've got that little bit of sherry vinegar bite. I love sherry vinegar. It's such a nice flavor. Goes really well with things that you're going to put in your salad, like meat, like steak. If you're doing a steak salad, I like a sherry vinegar that way. If you're doing a duck salad, it goes really, really well. I'm going to go a little bit more salt and white pepper, because we're a little shy on those. And you should do that to taste. Add a little. Give it a second to dissolve, because with all that oil, the salt will take just a second, especially if you're using kosher salt, to dissolve. And you want to get the flavor just right. Remember, you can always add more. You just can't take it away once it's in there. You know, a trick, though, is if you feel like, wow, I put a little bit too much salt in there, what will neutralize the salt? A little sugar. We're on the money now. So we have our nicely emulsified dressing. That's some beautiful arugula. What are some of the other ingredients? I'm going to put a little bit of thyme in my dressing. I'm going to pull this off the leaves here real quick, just like that. off the stems, the leaves off the stems. That's what I meant to say. So the amount of dressing I'm making, if you make a quart using 3 cups of oil and a cup of vinegar, probably half a teaspoon of chopped thyme is enough. If you like basil, you can put a little basil in there. I like basil and balsamic myself. I like thyme and sherry. So we're going to let that sit in there. It will take a little while for the flavor of the thyme to come out in the dressing. But what else is going to go in there? Oh, we forgot our garlic. I'm going to do the same thing with the garlic. I'm going to chop the garlic up the same way I did the shallot. Let me wipe this off. I'm going to put a few slices in it. And I'll show you a couple ways that you can do this at home. So I'm mincing it. Keep your fingers tucked. As long as your fingers are curled and on top and your thumb is behind your index finger, it's really hard to cut yourself. I can do this with my eyes closed all day long and not cut myself. So I'm going to mince this up just a little bit more. So that's going to be about a tablespoon. No, excuse me. That's about a teaspoon of garlic. We're going to let that sit in there a minute. Let's mix it just a little bit more. Probably a little bit better to allow that flavor to come out if you put that garlic in with the vinegar and the mustard right at the beginning. But this will be just fine. So the other ingredients to this salad today. You have the arugula, beautiful wild arugula, organic, baby, tender stems. You have the grilled squash. We're going to pair it up with a little prosciutto and some cotija cheese. Why cotija? I like cotija because it goes really well with the prosciutto and the sherry vinegar. Cotija comes from Mexico, a little town in Mexico called Cotija. They make this cheese that I really, really like. It's kind of a drier cheese, almost probably as dry as a Parmesan, but it's much more crumbly. As you can see, I'm going to crumble this cheese a little bit, and you can just kind of break it up with your hands. Now you don't want the pieces to be too small, but it has a very unique flavor. Almost slightly sour, but it's something that's really going to work with the prosciutto, the squash, and the bite of the arugula. And of course you got that sherry dressing that's going to be right in the background of all of that. So I'm going to take and I'm going to add a little bit of dressing to my arugula, just a little bit. I'm going to set my dressing off to the side. I'm going to dress this. Now I have some prosciutto that we've sliced. You can buy it sliced at the grocery store if you prefer to do it that way. I have another plate I'm going to bring in here right now that we're going to plate this on. A little black pepper on there on accident. So we're going to kind of line this up. This is the way we do it at the restaurant. You can see the arugula's got a light coat of the dressing. It's not too limp and overly dressed. We're going to come along with, I'm going to cut the squash just a little bit smaller so that they're bite-sized. We're going to put a couple pieces of squash here and there. just like that. Let's taste it. Make sure it's seasoned right. On the money. Got a little bit of smoky flavor. It's going to bring that. It's going to bring an interesting contrast into this salad. We're going to come along with some prosciutto. I'm going to tear it into smaller pieces. I'm going to kind of lay that here and there on the salad. This is a salad, if you want to toss it, you can. I don't like to do it that way, but then again, I plate these salads individually, so it's a little bit different than what you want to do at home. You might want to, if you're just doing a bowl, toss some of these ingredients in the bowl and put it on your dinner table that way, and then add a couple more on top to give it that wow factor. We're going to come along with some cotija cheese that we've kind of crumbled right across the top. Just like that. What else am I going to garnish it with? I have some wonderful chives here that I'm going to use. And I want some nice, to make it look beautiful, I want some nice consistent pieces of chive. So I'm going to use that for the stock pot. And I'm going to cut a little bit of chive right here. And then I'm going to take these and kind of crisscross them here and there, just to make it look, give it another little twist on the presentation. Little stray there. I hope everybody's staying safe. It's definitely getting a little challenging to do that with so many people in Arizona coming down with this god-awful curse. It makes you wonder. That's about it, and I'm going to sprinkle a couple of these on top just to make it look cute. And that's it. Am I forgetting anything? I think I got it all. Arugula salad, sherry vinaigrette, cotija cheese, prosciutto, grilled butternut squash, and chive. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.